Hello, it's Richard here on YouTube, and I just wanted. We're making a new project that is called the Musicians Makeover Project.com, and it's a project that we're starting just to help out street musicians. You see all these musicians, you see all this talent out there on the streets, and you're just wondering why they're not famous. You know, and there's a lot of reasons for this. So we want to make a difference for all these musicians who are, living on the streets. We want to help out all these street musicians and musicians who want to dedicate themselves to music but don't have the means. So we want to get this building. We're starting to look for this building. We want to get this building where we can put all these musical instruments. We want to start buying guitars. We want to start buying keyboards. We want to start basses. All this drum sets. All these instruments that are going to be needed so they can polish themselves as musicians. What we also want to do is we want to buy all this recording equipment, microphones, computers, and all these monitors and all this stuff that is going to be needed, like modules and all these other keyboards and stuff that they're going to need. So microphones, things like that, so they can have their. You see that the problem with the musicians being on the street is that the reason for them, and that we believe that they are going through financial hardship, is not having the tools that they need to succeed. And the main thing that they're lacking is a professional CD. Secondly, they're lacking the instruments or the equipment for them to have their own professional recording. As you might be aware, has become so expensive for these musicians to have their own CD, to have their own professional recording. So we want to do is have all this equipment so they can have their own CD and they can have their own videos. And then we want to have all these musical instruments so they can just come over and practice. So they can polish their music, so they can start composing, so they can start dedicate themselves to what they're, they are, who they are. It's like having a musician without what's a musician without having a place or having a instrument to rehearse. So we want to start buying, all these things, so they can start composing, and they can at the end have their own professional CD and have their own video, so they face the world with the tools that they need. So we're starting to look for this building where we can put all these instruments. We need, we're asking for donations for people who want to help us out. We're thinking about looking for a building in Austin, Texas, because we believe that Austin, because of the price of the real estate, it's going to be more convenient to do this in Austin. We thought about doing this in California, but it all depends on how much response we get from people that trying, helping out on the project. So what we see here with musicians, is not having a place where to rehearse. Most of the time, a musician would gather with other musicians. They would get together in somebody's garage, and what happens is that there's we're making all this noise, and then we have the neighbors complaining. We have neighbors calling the police, the cops, and they shut us off. We can't deal with it. And then there's we're just for musicians who want to do this seriously, they end up going to court, paying all these fees. They end up, many getting arrested just for trying to rehearse or trying to do what that they're supposed to do, and that is making music. So we want to bring all these musicians down to this building so they can rehearse, where the bands, without bothering, without getting tickets, without being arrested on the streets. Many musicians who are street musicians, there's the same scenario. You know, all these restrictions on the streets. They end up, it's the same scenario. They end up getting arrested, or they end up getting tickets. So we want to have is this building where they can just come over and rehearse. They can come over and rehearse, and ultimately, when they're prepared, we're gonna have this recording studio where they can use so they can ultimately have their own CD, and they can have their own professional video. So pretty much that's what it is. This is what we're trying to do is to find a building. So we need money where we want to build, so we can build this project. So if you have any ideas, just help us out and get these musicians out of the streets. There's so much talent out there. There's so much talented on the streets that you might be aware that goes unnoticed. Many of these musicians are living on the streets. Many musicians are living on the back. I know a whole family of musicians, very, very talented couple with their son, and they're living on the back of their van. It's just incredible. How can this happen? And there's so much musicians that they're living with their mothers, or they're living with their friends. They don't have many musicians on the streets because they don't have the tools necessary to succeed. So we want to provide them all these tools that they need. At the end, there's going to be all these because all these musicians are going to be rehearsing there. We want to make this like a venue for people to come over and see these musicians perform. So we're going to have tourists, where there's going to be a lot of traffic, where they can have a lot of exposure. So we want to have on one end we're going to have the stage where they can perform, big stage with the chairs on the side, where the public comes over. They all these tourists or people, family who want to come over and see all these musicians perform, they can come over. So we're gonna have the stage, and we want to have like alleys, so they can come over and watch these bands perform. So it's gonna be a beautiful project, okay? So it's gonna be pretty much like the same way that you would go down to a library and rent out a computer. In this case, they just come over. If they want to rent out a booth, they can just leave their driver license and rent out the booth, free of charge. And the same way, they can rent out these booths with drum sets. We're gonna have booths with drum sets, so they can come over and just practice their chops. We want to have booths with keyboards, professional keyboards, so they can come over and play the pianos. They start dedicating to the music, dedicating to record, dedicating to composing music. So if there's some musicians who don't have a place where to live, we want to have like dormitories, transitional dormitories. So for all these musicians who are just having a hard time. So if you want to contribute to the project, you are most welcome to give us a helping hand. We're just starting to buy all these musical instruments, and then later on we want to buy all this recording equipment, and then we want to get the building. So most likely we think about Austin. It's probably going to be in Austin, because Austin is the mecca for musicians. We know there's some other places, but because of the cost of the real estate, it's more likely going to be down in the east side of Texas, which is Austin. We thought about California, but it all depends how many people help us out, how many people contribute to the project. That's where we're going to be able to do this. But we know that real estate is kind of it's not as expensive as in other places. So if you have any ideas or comments, you're more than welcome. Just leave your comment or have any suggestions. Just let us know what's on your mind, and your contribution is always appreciated. Thank you very much, Richard, with the musiciansmakeoverproject.com. Thank you very much. Bye bye.
But since I